Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna talk about One Punch Man Season 3. Before I talk about that, though, I kind of want to just give a little bit of background on me watching anime because I've never really done a video like this. This video is very off-brand for this channel, but it also kind of is because I'm gamer for fun. It literally comes from Saitama calling himself a hero for fun. I had Saitama as my profile pic on YouTube for years. And yeah, I'm a big fan of season one. I mean, season one of One Punch Man is probably my favorite season of any anime that I've seen. Now, I haven't seen that many animes. I'll tell you what I've seen. I've seen Pokemon, the Kanto League and the Johto League. I think I saw all of the Johto League, but I really don't remember if I got through all of it. But I saw those. I saw Yu-Gi-Oh, all of the original Yu-Gi-Oh series. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, most of it. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D is some of it. And I've seen Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, and Dragon Ball Daima. So that is my experience watching anime, and as you can see, it's very numerous in terms of the number of shows. I think that was 10. Half of them are Dragon Ball. So yeah, I don't really have actually much experience watching anime. Experience. I just don't have much time watching anime. The reason for that is I'm not into animated shows in general. Anime to me has always been something that I don't know. I was into it for a couple years of getting into them, and then I never really got back into wanting to watch them. And that's why there's the animes that I've watched. I've seen a little bit of Sailor Moon. I never really got into that. Um, and I know I've been told Death Note's really good. I've never seen that. I mean, there's the other one show, or the other one project. I think it's Mob Psycho. Someone correct me on that if I'm wrong, but there's that one too. I'm aware of. There's One Piece. There's Bleach. There's stuff like that I'm aware of. I've been told some of them I've been told to watch, and I just don't have any interest in watching them. My Hero Academia, another one. There's a lot of shows I've been recommending because I know people who watch anime, and I just don't have much of an interest in watching them, to be honest with you. And even One Punch Man, while season one was originally going on, while it was on the air and coming out weekly, I knew about it. I was aware of its existence, and I even maybe saw a scene from it. I think I saw the Saitama Sonic scene, the first one. But I just didn't have any interest in watching it beyond that. I don't know. It's not that I dislike the scene. I really like the scene. Just anime, just for whatever reason, it doesn't really click all that much with me. And normally it has to be something that I'm like. It just has to be something that's a product of something I've watched before. So, that's why if they release a new Dragon Ball series, I'll watch that. Yu-Gi-Oh, not really, unless they go back to the original characters, but I'm not expecting that to happen. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand with anime. And why am I saying all of this? Just to kind of put out there that I'm not some massive anime fan. I am a very casual anime watcher. If you'd even call me that, I'm probably less than that. But just like when I say certain things about the show, when I do say it, just understand it does come from a place of not having the knowledge of a lot of how other animes look and how they, their stories or how good they typically are, stuff like that. With that said, season one of One Punch Man was it was my favorite anime of all time. Favorite season of an anime of all time. And there's a couple that are up there that could maybe contend with that. I mean, I really love the early parts of the Namek Saga of Dragon Ball Z. The King Piccolo arc of Dragon Ball is fantastic. Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City. There's a lot there that I really, really like. But One Punch Man season one, the thing is, like I said earlier, I wasn't into watching it. I couldn't get into watching it while it was happening, while it was coming out weekly. But at some point after it was all out, maybe a few months later, I finally really like. Someone told me, or maybe it was a video I watched. I don't even remember, but basically, I had heard that One Punch Man, and the description I was given for it is it's a guy that beats everyone in one punch, and it's a very funny show. And I don't know why at that time, in that moment, that piqued my interest, but it did. It did enough to where I was like, okay, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I will start from episode 1, and I will see if I can get through it. And most of the time when I start watching a show, most of the time, even if I end up not liking the show, I can usually get through a season of it. So even if I didn't like One Punch Man, I would have gotten through that season once I started watching it. But I watched season 1, and by the end of episode 1, I was hooked. By the end of episode 3, I was a big fan. By the end of episode 9, it was my favorite season of any anime, and then the cherry on top, episode 12 with Saitama versus Boros. I mean, that season, from the animation to the story it told to the comedy in it to the emotional moments. Again, episode 9, Moomin Rider, one of my favorite scenes, maybe my favorite scene of any anime ever. Like, it was fucking phenomenal. And I loved season 1. Again, I put it very high up. And, I say it's my favorite anime season of all time. It would stack up there with a lot of my favorite seasons from other shows. Maybe not quite as high, but I could put it up there. Like, it maybe would crack top 10 of all time for me. Probably would. I'd have to think about that. But yeah, it's such a fantastic season, amazing season. There's not really much more I could have wanted from it. And then season 2 came out. I'm going to briefly talk about season 2 because it kind of sets up me talking about season 3 a little bit. While season 2 was going on, a lot of people had a lot of criticism about it. Didn't really like it all that much. There were people that liked it, of course, but a lot of the discourse online about it was that it just wasn't as good as season 1, and it didn't live up to the hype that season 1, or the standard that season 1 set. So I was like, okay, all right. So when I was watching it, and I watched it every week, and by the end of the season, I loved the season. Even halfway through the season, I thought it was a really good season, but I definitely think the second half of season 2 brought it up to being great for me. And yes, I would call it a great season. Yes, it was not as good as season 1. That I 100% agree with the majority on, but unlike the majority, I think I'm one of the few people that actually call it a great season. And this is where you can point to my lack of anime knowledge and watching stuff like that, but season 2 for me just knocked it out of the park. Had some good animated parts, and it wasn't as good as season 1, but I didn't have a problem with the animation, with the drawings, or anything like that. I'm pretty sure, maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 5, or not Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, Season 5 was kind of bad animation-wise, but I'm more so specifically the Grand Prix arc, Kaiba versus, not Kaiba, well, Kaiba versus Siegfried was a pretty badly animated duel, even though it was one of the best duels of the series, in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, point being, I didn't think the animation was all that bad, or the drawings, or the art, or anything like that. And I thought the story was excellent, especially following Garo. And in some ways, the story did kind of reach season 1 levels. Again, I know some people will also point to, and I guess this is something else I can talk about now too, before I, just tiptoeing around talking about season 3 before I eventually have to get to this. But yeah, as far as reading the manga and the webcomic, I'm not going to go into anything specific, but just to kind of give you an idea of how much I read of that before it comes out in the anime. For season 3, for example, we'll use season 2 to start, since we're on season 2. The tournament arc. I remember at some point hearing Saitama was in the middle of a tournament arc in the manga, and I was like, okay, all right, I kind of want to see this. I kind of want to see what they do, and I ended up liking it. I ended up, reading it up until, but I stopped specifically at the Saitama Suiryu fight, which I knew was coming up. I didn't actually read that fight because I wanted to see that animated first time before I saw what happened. Even though I kind of figured, of course, it's Saitama. Of course, he's gonna, he's basically just gonna knock this guy out. But they built up Suiryu really well. I think in the beginning, where Saitama's one punching everyone, Suiryu is also very impressive, basically knocking everyone out in one hit too. And I liked how they were building that up. And it's funny because one of those tournament arc episodes is probably my least favorite episode of the entire season when came to the anime, but I did still again it piqued my interest enough to read part of it in the manga, and I read it, and then I stopped before I really saw the thing that I wanted to see animated. And then Saitama versus Suiryu, I ended up really liking that fight and how it was done. So season 2 for me, it knocked it out of the park. Again, did it hit a grand slam like season 1 did? No, but I'd say it hit a home run. Single home run. I really enjoyed it. But then also, again, going back to the manga and the webcomic as far as what I read points, I know the ultimate big fight that all of this is leading to, probably at the end of season 3, part 2. And I know what happens in that fight. I actually know what happens in both versions. And just a little side note, while I prefer the fight in the manga, the fight itself, like as far as the choreography, everything else about it I prefer from the webcomic. From the story to the characters to the setup to everything else, for me, is better in the webcomic. So, yeah, there's a part of me that hopes that that's what they actually animate. I know that's not going to happen. I mean, realistically, they're gonna follow the manga. At least, I mean, even though we'll talk about the retcon situation, but yeah, but, obviously they're going to follow the main points of what happened in the manga, and that means we're going to get what we get, and that is fine. I have no problem with the manga version of it. I really enjoyed it. Well, actually, I'm not going to say I don't have any problem, but overall, I think the manga version is still a great version of it. But the webcomic version to me is peak One Punch Man. So if they decided to make that animated and obviously use Murata maybe to do a more faithful adaptation of that, to get the art and everything, then I would be very happy with that. But maybe not everyone will agree, so they'll probably stick with the manga, and most people will be happy anyway. With that said, yeah, I don't read most of the manga or most of the webcomic. I read in specific points. I knew about, for example, Tatsumaki versus Guru or Giro. I don't know how to say that, but Pink Blob. I know how Pink-Eyed Blob, so I know she does that. I don't want to confuse him with Majin Buu. That is, I know what happens with that fight. I knew the fight was coming, and I know what's going to happen with it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that, or maybe not looking forward is the word, but I don't know, because I guess I'll talk about season 3 now. We're 14 minutes in this video. I've rambled and tiptoed around it and tried to avoid going into this, but season 3. If you can't tell by my tone already, by the words I'm using, yeah, season 3. And I would have loved nothing more than, like season 2, to be watching everyone else trash it and just being like, I'm loving this. I'm loving this season. I'm loving everything about it. You guys don't like it? That sucks for you. And that's kind of my take when I'm on the other side of it too, where like if I don't really like something and someone else really likes it, I mean, unless you're being a dick about it, then, I'll try throwing it in your face. But, if it's everything's respectful and everything is at least, or not even just neutral, if everything is neutral about it, about the situation, my take on it will always be that I'm happy that you enjoyed it. I wish I enjoyed it. I didn't, but I'm very happy that you did. So season 2, like, I was on the side of really enjoying it. I felt bad for the people that couldn't enjoy it, that didn't enjoy it. And season 3, I'm on the side of, yeah, this season was complete hot garbage, and I wish I was on the side of whoever enjoys it. The thing is, I haven't seen anyone who actually enjoyed this season. I haven't seen anyone online say that they really liked this season. Now, there are some parts of the season that were good, and I'll discuss those, and I'll give them their props. But yeah, this season is not fucking it. It's not it. And it is probably my least favorite. Season 1 was my favorite season of an anime. Season 3 is probably my least favorite season of an anime, because I talked about the Kaibakor Grand Prix. That is down there from Yu-Gi-Oh! As like one of my least favorites of any anime. And yeah, I think this is worse than that, because at least that I enjoyed the duels that were in there. I enjoyed pretty much all of the duels that they showed. Like I liked them all. The Joey Siegfried, Leon Siegfried, or not Leon Yugi, Kaiba Siegfried. Again, that one is like a top 5 duel for me, and of the series. And even like Leon Rebecca was good too. Like that's the thing for me, that even with its problems in terms of story, in terms of Siegfried, I kind of like Siegfried as a villain, but he also just was kind of bland too, so I didn't love it. I didn't love the story of it, but I didn't hate it either. There were a lot of problems there in terms of art and everything, that again, you watch the season, you'll see what that is. There were problems with it, and I didn't like the season, but I would watch that 10 times over before I watch One Punch Man Season 3 again. Dragon Ball GT. Probably my least favorite of any Dragon Ball season, at least off the top of my head, besides Super stuff, like the retelling things. I think. I'd have to think back to Super, but Dragon Ball GT, Super 17 arc. It's a cool concept. I hated almost everything about it. But I still liked, I don't know, it was cool seeing Frieza and Cell fight Goku, team up to fight him. You had that, and the idea of Super 17 was all right, and some of the fighting was good too. Like I look at something like that and I say, even that's, I think, is better than One Punch Man Season 3. Like, One Punch Man Season 3 was trash. And just to briefly go through some of it, episode 1, about 10 minutes into episode 1, I'm watching it, and I'm watching Tatsu, I think it was Tatsumaki on screen, and the camera was panning, and by that point in the episode, I was kind of like, all right, this is not looking good. This episode is probably going to suck. But, of course, after one episode, I don't believe one episode writes the story or makes makes something great or horrible. To me, it was a very bad first episode. But season 2 didn't have a great first episode either. In fact, season 2's episode 1 is one of the weaker episodes of the season. I wouldn't call it bad, and I would definitely call it definitely nowhere near the trash that season 3 episode 1 was. But things can start off rocky and work things out and get better. So, that was my take on it. And then episode 2 rolled around, and episode 2 was trash too, but it was a little better. I enjoyed the humor with and the stuff with Garo. I mean, not the animation necessarily, but Garo in the diner, and then the dine and dashing, and Saitama using that as an excuse to chase after him to get out of his own bill that he had. I enjoyed that humor of it, and Saitama chasing him at the park, and then, knocking Garo out, and then Garo saving the kid, and which, it was the scene of the crime, basically, or scene of the biggest crime of the season for some people. Although personally, even when it happened, I just saw it and I just laughed. Like, I had a good laugh about that. So You know what? It was far from the worst thing of the season for me, the Garo slide. I mean, even though technically it might have been the worst thing, like from a technical animation standpoint, it was. For me personally, for my enjoyment, it was definitely not the worst thing. I got a good laugh out of it. And even when it happened, and I'm glad it became a giant meme and people trying to do it better and showing they can do it better in like a 10-minute video. And I everything that came out of that meme is one of the bright points of the season. Ironically, one of the bright points. But yeah, I liked it for all the wrong reasons. It was trash, but it was still like that's the thing. I try to take something good out of a lot of this stuff, and for me, it's tough to take a lot of good out of this season. Like the episode after episode 2 with the fight, that was, you know, there was one good part in it, and then otherwise it was like literally one good scene, like one good animation, and that was it. And after that, it's trash. It's just complete trash. And them taking the kid, you know, whatever, that's all fine. And then, you know, the stuff with Saitama in the apartment with the rest of them, I didn't know anything about the hot pot scene. And so this was all getting set up, right? And I think I watched a review of episode 3 after it happened, and someone brought up, oh yeah, the big hot pot scene is coming up in episode 4. And I believe it was episode 4 came up. I don't think it was episode 5. If it was in episode 5 or maybe even episode 6, I don't know. No, it definitely wasn't episode 6, but if it was episode 5, then my bad. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of the hot pot scene actually. Which, yeah, I don't know. It didn't really click. Maybe it was the animation. Maybe it works better in the manga, but when you're reading through it. But for me, it just, like, it was kind of funny, but it wasn't great. But I actually enjoyed what happened in episode 3, I think, with, you know, Saitama getting back to the apartment and, you know, telling the story of how he lost his wallet, then he lost the food, or he forgot to bring the food back, and that's the big problem. But then, of course, Fubuki was there, so she brings the food back, like, and she scolds him for what happened, and you have Genos there trying to, I mean, again, this was all poorly done animation-wise, but the writing of it, I really enjoyed and I really liked, and that's another thing about me not reading everything in the manga or the webcomic. Like, there's a lot of stuff dialogue-wise that's going to be fresh to me, that's going to be new to me, that other people who have read those things, it won't be. So all they're really looking at is to see, oh, well, how well is it animated? For me, I want to see how well it gets animated, but I'm also interested in seeing a lot of the beats of the story that, you know, I don't know about. So that works to my benefit, and it's probably the reason I probably did enjoy this season more than most people. Whatever that's saying, I mean, it's really not saying much. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I like this season. I don't, but I had that going for me at least, and I enjoyed the scene with them at the apartment, the one before the hot pot episode. The hot pot one I didn't like. Episode 4 I barely remember. Outside of that, to be honest with you, it was such a forgettable episode. I don't have much to say. I think the only thing that was good about it was the end where Garo comes and saves Tario, and that was it. That's the only thing I really remember about it. Was in that sets up episode 5, which to the point of the episode airing was easily the best episode of the season. And to be clear, I don't think the episode was good. It just wasn't bad. It was a very mixed meh episode. I thought this Garo, I thought the Garo fights ranged from looking like garbage to looking pretty good. I mean, even the Orochi fight, in just the Orochi fight itself, that's kind of what you got. You got points of it looking good, and then you had, you know, points of it where it's just like, yeah, this doesn't live up to the hype of what people were saying. Because this is another thing, because I was watching reviews, someone had mentioned at some point that we were getting Garo versus Orochi in episode 5, and yeah, that's something I didn't know was going to happen until the review. It would have been nicer to not have known about that, but that's my fault for looking up reviews. So I'm not blaming the person who I watched. I usually avoid reviews, but I don't know. I was just so like frustrated with the season that, I mean, to be fair, I also did look up for season 2 as well, because I was curious about seeing the discourse on that too. But typically when I watch a show, I don't really look at reviews or anything. I try to avoid everything about it until I finish the show, and then I'll go back and watch it or read what people said. But in this case, with season 3 specifically, because of how trash it was, I was like, you know what, I want to see what other people are saying. And it kind of worked against me because I ended up, you know, it would have been a nice surprise to see Garo run into Rover, which Rover's somebody actually, too, like, he's something I know about actually from the webcomic. I believe it, no, actually, that might have been the manga. I forgot if I saw him in the webcomic or the manga, but I saw him like later on. And so I kind of knew, and I don't know if that's really a spoiler because he did run from Saitama at the end of the last episode, but I didn't know what happened to him in the Monster Association. I don't even think I knew that he was from the Monster Association when I first saw him. So I don't know. I actually don't remember because it's been a while since I read that, but yeah, so it was cool seeing kind of where he, you know, what he did in this season between this fight with Garo and then eventually later on the fight with Saitama. I really liked well, I like Rover. I'll say that. I don't know if I liked what happened with this stuff with him and Garo. I don't know if I liked that fight all that much. I don't know if I liked the stuff with Garo, Orochi, but in points I did. I liked the interaction between Garo and Guro, but the actual like fight itself, whatever you want to call that, wasn't good animation wise. Like it's I can see why people were hyping it up and why people were looking forward to this episode to see these things, because there's a lot of cool stuff that happens. It was just not all executed to the best of its ability. And we see later on, the thing is too, again, this was the best episode to this point. And I think at some point, either before this episode or after this episode, like right after this episode, there was somebody online, a tweet from a director or somebody who said, oh yeah, episodes 5 and 9, those are the best that we're going to get. Okay. All right. So we're gonna have to wait for episode 9 to see something halfway decent again. I don't even know if I call episode 5 decent, but that's basically, we're gonna have to hope for episode 9 to pull this season up and kind of make things better. And the funny thing is, with episode 5, I think you'd argue there was 3 better episodes than it, maybe even 4, depending on your thoughts on the final episode. Yeah, so that's certainly something, but yeah, episode 6 ended up being the most criticized episode. Got trashed online. I think it's the lowest rated IMDb anime episode of any anime. It's such a hated episode, and the episode was garbage. And again, coming off of having an episode that wasn't bad to then an episode that was really bad, you know, after episode 5 got our hopes up a little bit, I guess, for anyone who was having hope at that point. I might have still had a little hope myself. But, yeah, episode 6 got really trashed. And here's the thing. This is where I think the fact that I didn't read this in the manga or the webcomic, if it happens there, I think this is where it actually worked to my benefit, and I don't see this episode as bad as other people. I mean, don't get me wrong, animation-wise, it's, you know, it's bottom of the barrel trash. Like, I think there was like 3 seconds of animation the entire episode. So I get why people hate it. The thing is, I enjoyed the dialogue. I enjoyed the story they told during the episode. I enjoyed the banter between the S-Class heroes, the stuff with King, them defending King being out all night, you know, with blood on his shirt because he was fighting monsters and the heroes believing him. Like, I really liked all of that stuff. Now, I understand for someone who read it in the manga, it doesn't hit as hard because you already read it there, but for me, I got a good laugh out of this episode. I was actually somewhat entertained by this episode. Unironically entertained. So, and also ironically entertained because that King walk was fucking hilarious. I I was definitely not supposed to be that bad. I refuse to believe that was the intention for it to be as bad as it was. But then again, maybe it was, because holy shit, that was just. But I even that I kind of got a laugh at. So again, the episode. The problem is, the episode comes after most of the season was already just talking, and just still frame talking too. And then this episode was no different. So that aspect of it was pretty tiring. It was a bad episode, but was it the worst episode? I thought episode 1 was worse. I thought episode 4, I'm pretty sure I thought episode 4 was worse. I really can't remember it right now. Episode 3 was worse. Like, I don't know. I'd rather watch episode 6 than most of the episodes up until this point. And again, that's not saying much, but I didn't hate episode 6 anywhere near as much as most people did. But if you did, I'm kind of still there with you, because it sucked, and this whole season sucked, and then episode 7 sucked. Probably a little better than episode 6 though, because at least there was a pretty cool Atomic Samurai scene. But to be honest, I liked seeing a lot of these other heroes who we probably may never see again fight and fend off the monsters and have their struggles, and then the S-Class coming in and basically showing how dominant they are and the levels there are to this. I mean, we kind of already saw that in season 2 with. Well, we saw that in season 1, 2 with the Deep Sea King, the A-Class fighting him, and then of course Genos coming in, or even Puri Puri Prisoner as an S-Classer coming in, and then Genos coming in and actually being able to fight off the Deep Sea. We saw how the levels there are to this, and this was just another way they did it, where we see the A-Class, the B-Class heroes kind of having to team up to fend off some of these monsters, and then the S-Class for the most part can just one-shot them or just completely dominate them. So I think it was a good way to establish that, from a plot standpoint. And again, I mean, animation-wise, the thing is, outside of the one Atomic Samurai scene, and maybe there's a couple other parts that were okay that I'm forgetting about. It wasn't good. And when you're doing a big fight episode like this, it's just not good that the animation isn't there. Oh, but this is far from the worst example of that, because the worst episode of the season is coming up. But not the next episode, because episode 8 was one of the best episodes of the season. It was legitimately a pretty good episode, and it had the best fight of the season, by far. The only reason I don't consider episode 8 the best episode of the season is because that fight wasn't the whole episode. That fight was 40 to 50% of it. And then the rest of the episode was kind of whatever. It was back to the usual standards for season 3. But that Flashy Flash Ninja fight, holy! I remember when I was watching that, and I was seeing the animation, and I was like, "What the fuck? What is this? What is this thing that we're watching? This isn't One Punch Man season 3. This is almost season 2. This is season 1. This is." I mean, I didn't really think it was up to that level, but I was like, this is really good. If the whole season was like this, with the fights at least, with the fights that happened, like the Garo versus Monsters fight in episode 3, the episode 5 fights with him against Rover and Orochi, if those fights were of this quality, as well as everything else afterwards, I wouldn't be on here calling season 3 trash. I still think if they handled the talking stuff the way they did, I wouldn't call it necessarily really good either, but I might break through to good. I might break through to calling it at least a good season, maybe a pretty good season. A decent season, definitely. This was just so refreshing to see, and the action was good, and the dialogue between them was good. Everything about it hit the right notes. And again, maybe it's just because we were used to mediocrity the last 7 episodes, but to see a full fight that was very good from start to finish, I was happy. I was happy with this episode, and by by the end of episode 6, I was kind of like, all right, we're fucked for this season, and I lost all hope. Episode 8 brought back some hope. And then that led into episode 9, which, while the fight between Phoenix Man and Child Emperor was not as good as the fight with as the Flashy Flash fight, I really enjoyed still really enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was still the second best fight of the season. Again, it had its problems animation wise and art wise, but for the most part, I thought it was solid. I thought it was pretty good, and I thought at points it was great. And there's other problems people have with this this episode story wise, because this is something I didn't know at the time I was watching it, so it didn't really ruin it for me. But you know, when I was watching reviews of it, people would bring it up, of course. This fight that they used for this episode is a retconned version of the fight. Now, I have my issues, by the way. Just I'm going to put my thoughts out there about this really quick. I have my issues with the retcons that happen in the manga. Like, to me, listen, whatever it is, the Murata, he can do whatever he wants to do, I guess, and with one, and if they want to try polishing up the story in ways, I mean, that's fine, I guess. You know, and I'm sure at some points it gets better. I mean, but there's one errata I do know of, but I'm just generally, I don't know. To me, once something's published out there, I'm not a fan of changing it. Like, you know, it's one thing for like a game to do bug fixes and to add to content. And same thing, if Murata's just adding to it, that's fine. Like, if you wanted to redo chapters to keep everything that was there the same, but add more, I could understand that. But the difference between, like, this one, for example, of what happens here, apparently there's 3 different versions of this fight, too. I don't even know what the third version is, but there's this version, and then I guess the most recent version, that's the canon one, which I will talk about here. So, you know, if you don't want to be spoiled, doesn't really matter, because it's not, doesn't, it might matter, actually, but, you know, if you don't want to be spoiled, then now's probably the time to click off. But if you're watching this, you probably already know about it. I might put a timestamp up when I stop talking about it, but yeah. So in the newest version, the canon version of it, Saitama's there, and you have this whole thing with Child Emperor being in this penguin memory zone thing, and or whatever it is, this Phoenix Man memory zone or imaginary world. I don't know what you call it. I forgot what it was exactly, but you know, he's there, and Phoenix Man's trying to convince them to join their side, because you know, he shows them that the Hero Association are a bunch of monsters, and they, you know, themselves, like, they not physically, but just, you know, they're executives. They'll do things that are unscrupulous. They'll do things that are very unethical, and things that Child Emperor finds disgusting. And that's kind of how he tries to win Child Emperor over. But Child Emperor keeps resisting, keeps fighting it off. Which all of that is good. But the problem I have with this retcon version isn't actually that. I actually liked all of that stuff. And, you know, Child Emperor kind of showing his willpower, showing that, you know, he won't be, even with everything put in front of him, he's still going to pull back and not do it. I hate the fact that Saitama's part of this, which is funny, because Saitama needs to be in the season a little bit more than he is. But I hate in the newer version that Saitama's part of it. I hate that he's the one that comes in and saves Child Emperor, and he kind of gives the big pep talk, and you know, he's essentially the reason that Child Emperor feels like ends up winning. I don't know. I don't really like that version of events as a whole. Again, there are parts of it I like more. The main thing for me is what I like about the episode one is at least it kept a version where Child Emperor is still doing everything himself. Like, yeah, he does try to meet up with Flashy Flash and tries to do all that to have him help take care of this monster, but you know, when that fails, he figures out a way to do it. Now, it is a little ridiculous. It feels like it was the longest 10 seconds ever of him waiting for the robot dying and on its last legs. But You know, listen, Dragon Ball Z, 5 minutes on Namek, 50 episodes of fighting. You know, it's all good. I know it wasn't actually 50 episodes, by the way, but it's still like it's all good. I don't mind anime expanding time like that. But with that said, I just like that Child Emperor ended up fighting off Phoenix Man on his own. That to me was the important part. That to me is the thing that makes me enjoy this version above the other version. Like, I just don't like Saitama, getting involved in him kind of having to give his oh yeah, good boy, Child Emperor, you're a real hero. Like, I don't think that was all necessary. I think that's something, if they wanted to do, that could be something put in a later arc. At some point, Child Emperor could impress Saitama there. But I don't know. To me, I mean, I'm sure people will disagree with me on it. People probably love the new version. I'm not a fan of it. So I'm kind of glad they went with this version. Now, I will admit, considering how the story goes and when the retcon version came out and stuff that comes out after the retcon version, this could, and from what I understand, will cause some issues with the story later on. I acknowledge that. All I can say is we'll have to see how they handle it. That's all I can say. Like, I'd be fine with the retcon version minus the Saitama stuff. Like, if Child Emperor, doesn't give in and then ends up, beating Phoenix Man anyway, then yeah, I'd really, I would have been fine with that as being the main version. Like him, I think him probably discovering, because I know what happens with him in a webcomic arc later on, or maybe it's the manga. I don't know. Because they're both like, because I think the manga's on the arc where I know about this from Child Emperor, so I might have read it there first and not the webcomic. But yeah, I kind of know where things go, and I understand why it's important that he's shown this stuff by Phoenix Man, and why that doubt is planted. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. Like, I'm not a fan of how the fight went as a whole, more so than the original version. Or I don't know if this is the original version of the fight, because apparently there's 3 versions. Who knows? Maybe there's 10 versions that people don't talk about. But this is a version, the animated version of the fight. I liked it. I liked it more than the most recent manga version. So I'm happy with what they went with. But maybe I'll regret that later on when story problems arise. We'll see. With that said, yeah, so Child Emperor Phoenix Man, that was the whole episode. It was a really good fight throughout. That's my favorite episode of the season. I'd say it was a pretty good episode. Pretty good episode. The fact that the best episode of the season, I think, is a pretty good episode is kind of a problem in and of itself. But you know what? Here's the thing. Episode 8 had that awesome flashy flash fight. I was happy with that. Episode 9, really good. At this point, by the end of episode 9, I'm like, okay, all right. I know they only said episode 5 and episode 9, but episode 8 had that great fight. Maybe the rest of the episodes will at least have one really good fight. Maybe we'll at least have something to look forward to. Maybe this will be... And then episode 10 came out and ruined everything. Episode 10 was the worst episode of the season. This was the one that deserved a 1.0 rating. I didn't find it entertaining. I didn't find the dialogue good. I didn't find the animation good. And it was supposed to be a fighting, it's a fighting episode. And it was just, they just did not give a fuck about this episode. Like, this was bad. This was actually bad. To me, this is like, any hope that I built up, any hopium I built up from the last 2 episodes, gone. This episode killed it. It was like, for the last 2 episodes after this one, I was just like, you know what? Whatever. Maybe they'll have good parts. Maybe they won't. I don't care. I'm not like a fan of Zombie Man either necessarily. I just, how do you go for what you had the last couple episodes, which was actually a decent enough anime to be a season 3 of One Punch Man, to that episode 10, that blob, that shit that they put out there? I don't know. I hated this episode. There was not. I don't think there was a single redeeming thing about it. There was some censorship. I didn't even know about the censor thing with the cigarette. I didn't know about it, but I remember watching the episode, and I was like, "There is no way this guy's eating a lollipop. There is just no fucking way." He has he's not. No way. Not that there's anything wrong with eating a lollipop as an adult, but I'm like, come on. There's got to be something up with this, and it just felt so out of place. I don't know. It's god damn. It was just bad. I don't know what else to say other than it was really bad. I don't have anything. Like I said before, I try to get something good out of each episode. This just wasn't. There's nothing there. I'd probably give it a 0 out of 10. Like that's how little I think of this episode. It might be the worst episode of any anime I've ever seen. I don't want to say that for absolute certainty. Because I don't remember every single anime of every episode I've seen, but like this has to be this was just, yeah. This made all the other bad episodes of season 3 look good, in my opinion. I mean, that's how bad I think this episode was. So I'm going to leave it there. Episode 10. Maybe someone else again, if you liked episode 10, awesome. I'm happy for you. Or if you don't think it's as bad as I do, hey, I'm happy at least you didn't suffer through it like I did. It was painful to watch. Moving on. Episode 11. This was like episode 8, kind of a little surprise. I mean, it wasn't as good as episode 8 in terms of the fights, but we got some good stuff in here. Like, we got the Atomic Samurai Black S, which had some really good animated scenes and stuff, or CGI or whatever it was. But we had some good stuff there. And I like the Atomic Samurai Black S stuff. I like that now we're starting to see the S-Class heroes having some problems with the monsters and the Monster Association from a few episodes. I think it was episode 7 where they dominated whoever was up front or up top. Episode 11 now is the part where they're starting to have some problems, at least Atomic Samurai is. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed where all that was built up and us getting that, and then it actually being a pretty good fight, and especially like on the surface. I look at a Black S and I'm just like, this guy doesn't look all that impressive. I can't see this fight being that interesting, but JC Staff, they love their swordsmen. Like they try to at least make the swordsman flashy flash, and Atomic Samurai, they try to make their stuff good. So yeah, I liked it. I like that. The Puri Puri prisoner fight was surprisingly, I kind of enjoyed that one. I'm not really a fan of Puri Puri prisoner, but he's they did a pretty good job with his stuff here, and him chasing the cat and whatever his name is, and he was the one that fought the electric lady, I think. Electrically, I don't know. It was something like that. Anyway, it was well done. I liked it. I mean, again, like, I'm not saying it's good necessarily in the grand scheme of things, even amongst animes I've watched, but it's just, especially after episode 10, it's like, it was just good to see that at least some parts of this episode had some effort put in. I like some things about the Zombie Man Homeless Emperor fight. Some things I didn't like, but like I said after the last episode, it was like I wasn't getting my hope up anymore. I don't care. Let's just get through this season. And then something interesting happened before episode 12, and that's that there were leaks going around about this. There's going to be a part 2. There's going to be a part 2. Talk about that at the end. But talking quickly about episode 12, it wasn't the worst episode, but for a season finale, or I guess now a part 1 finale, it was bad. Like, Saitama Orochi was whatever. It wasn't good. It had some good moments in it, but like Saitama running out of the tunnel and then, you know, jumping around the rocks and stuff, like, but then of course at the end of that sequence, like, it just looked really badly drawn. Saitama with Orochi above him, like, I don't know. Like, again, even you look at season 2, like, I'm not gonna say again the animation throughout the season was great, because I don't think it was, but I thought it was acceptable throughout. But at least the final episode 2, it felt like they really put a lot of effort into making it a pretty well animated episode, with the Genos versus Sentichuro fight, and then of course the Saitama, where all the budget went Saitama punching Sentichuro, like that's it felt like there was at least effort put into that. This felt like they really did the bare minimum, like truly the bare minimum. Because outside the Saitama Orochi fight, I didn't find any of the other stuff that good that we saw. Even Saitama Rover, I didn't think was that well done. Like, it was fine, but I find it interesting Rover survived the punch. But, you know, good on him. Good on him. I guess Saitama wasn't trying to kill him, but even then, Saitama can punch, and sometimes, you know, he kills things anyway. So it says something about Rover's durability that he survived that. And he ends up beating Orochi with a normal punch. Probably punched him harder than he tried punching Rover, but yeah. Which is another thing too, actually, just to quickly talk about these last couple seasons. I mean, again, this is now season 3 part 1, so part 2 will be the end of season 3, and we'll probably get the fight that's a little more similar to the Boros fight. That but like season 2 ending, Saitama beating something in one punch. Okay, fine. Season 3 part 1 now, doing it again. The end of a 12 episode stretch. It's just whatever. Like, I'd like to see Saitama not necessarily struggle. I don't think Saitama should be struggling in a fight, but he, you know, it would be nice to see something more that takes one. But then I guess we got that with Rover. So, you know what am I even saying? Of course it was fine. This episode, though, was not fine. The way it ended wasn't fine. It wasn't all that interesting. I don't really remember what else happened. I know Pig God got eaten by something and then broke out. That was whatever. And I think there was something with Darkshine. He fought something too. He destroyed it in one hit. So there was that. And then there was the thing at the end with King almost getting tricked by a fake Wagama. By the way, fuck Wagama. That's all I gotta say on him. So yeah, that's season 3 pretty much wrapped up. It was garbage. It was. I mean, again, there were a few bright points, but it's just, look, we now have a part 2 announced. Unlike most people, I'm happy that they're doing it. I know you might be saying, what the fuck are you talking about? But I'm happy they're doing it. I'm happy they're doing it, because you know what? They already started this arc. They began the animation of it. They may as well finish it. Get one last chance. I'm not even saying that we should hope for it to be good. I'm not saying that. I'm not hoping for one. Oh, I mean, of course I'm hoping for it. But I'm not expecting it. That's the word to use. I'm not expecting it to be good. We shouldn't expect it to be good. We should expect it to be the same level of trash that we've seen from season 3. But I will watch it still. I will give it its chance. And if it really is still the same trash as what we've seen in season 3 so far, if it doesn't at least rise to the level of what we saw in, like, the episode 8 to 9 range, if it doesn't at least get back up, if it's not at least that level throughout, with a really good final fight, then then sure, cancel it. I won't need to see anything else after that. Like, I do know a couple things that do happen afterwards. I mean, there's a few things I'd like to see animated, but you know what? They get to the end of this arc, and if they can't get their act together, get their shit together, and make this part 2 of the season 3 at least a good season, if they can't manage that, then fine, do it. I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they showed us how trash they were at it. Someone else on YouTube will probably animate it better. That's fine. That is absolutely fine. Then cancel it. Won't need to see more after that. It'll be dead. It'll be complete. Some people already think it's dead because of how bad season 3 was, and I don't blame them. I don't blame anyone who's off the show now completely because of what happened in season 3, part 1. For me, I'm a forgiving person. The thing is, like, just to kind of close this video out, because I've been talking almost an hour, and that was not the intention when I originally started recording this, but season 3. I'm sorry, season 3. Yeah, so season 1 and 2 of One Punch Man I really liked. Season 3 was trash. There's one other show I can think of that I've seen. It's not an anime, it's got nothing to do, it's nothing like One Punch Man, but it's the only show that I can think of where I've seen a similar, it's a little different though, but a similar type of trend where I really liked the first 2 seasons and season 3 was complete garbage. And that was House of Cards, Netflix's House of Cards. Loved the first 2 seasons of that show. Probably even more than One Punch Man. Like, I really liked that show. And then season 3 came around and that was complete garbage. But season 4 then came. I thought season 4 was a good season. I thought it was good. I thought season 4 of House of Cards was leagues better than season 3. It still was nowhere near what seasons 1 and 2 were of House of Cards, but it was a good season. So having that experience, having that TV show watching experience, you know, I don't want to say I'm hoping or I think it's gonna happen. I don't want to cope and think, oh yeah, no, this they're gonna pick it up. They're definitely gonna make it better. I don't want to give that expectation out there, but I have seen it before where a show will take a dive off a cliff and then at least somewhat climb back up. So could that happen with One Punch Man? Could that happen with One Punch Man? It very well could. Don't expect it though. Don't get your hopes up because it really is like, it's not looking good. But they have a year plus to make this. So I don't know what JC staff has production wise and other things. I don't know what else will keep them from working on One Punch Man until they can work on it. I'm not blaming anyone for anything, by the way. I mean, I know there are people to blame for what happened, but I'm not putting any blame out there. All I'm saying is just make it right. Bandai Namco, JC staff, outside animators, whoever it is, just make this right. This series deserves a lot better than what we got for season 3 part 1. And to me, what's more important is season 3 part 2 being good. If season 3 part 2 is good, if things get back on track, then you know, I'll fall into the trap of believing that season 4 should happen. Assuming season 3 part 2 isn't renamed to season 4 at some point, and then we're talking about season 5, I'd be okay with season 5. Anyway, that's all that. That is it. I rambled on a lot here. And I don't know, I just don't have much else to add. Oh, you know, there is one thing actually I want to really talk about. I just want to kind of end with about, because I've talked mostly about the animation problems of season 3, but there is a story problem too, and I was trying to pinpoint exactly what my problem is with it. Like, what issue do I have with how season 3 is, and why did I really like season 1 and 2? I mean, there's a lot of reasons I like seasons 1 and 2. But from a story standpoint, from a character standpoint, one thing I noticed with those 2 seasons versus season 3, season 1, you know, it had its arcs, it had its other things happening, but there was a straight, like, there was a straight thread that was keeping everything together throughout the season. That was kind of, that everything sort of revolved around in a way. And that, of course, was Saitama, the main character. Season 2, to a lesser extent, but still similar, had Garo throughout. Like, he was the force that kind of kept the season going and the thread that kept everything together. Season 3 doesn't have a Saitama or a Garo in this season. I mean, they're there. They do appear in most of the episodes. Well, Garo, not most of the episodes. Garo, like half the episodes, I think, or even that. And Saitama appears in most of the episodes, I think, but a bunch of them he's there for like 30 seconds. So, but point being, like, there's no like Saitama, there's no Garo, there's no character that like we're following throughout the season and seeing their growth and development or how they change or whatever it is. Like, we don't see any of that. We just are following the heroes in general, fighting a bunch of monsters, going through the Monster Association, trying to rescue this kid. Like, there's no character or monster or hero that we're really following all that heavily, like we did with Season 1 Saitama and Season 2 Garo. And I think that's something that was missing from Season 3 that is a big difference, at least I noticed plot-wise, and probably one of the things that's hurting it and making it a little less interesting. I mean, I like the idea of the Monster Association arc and them attacking the monsters and it being this big war and basically everything going on. I almost feel like it's maybe stretched a little too long, but I don't know. Like, it's tough. I mean, really, if you think about it, it kind of started in Season 2. Like, it's a very long arc. And I'm wondering if it's like that in the webcomic. Well, anyway, that is that. Thank you all for joining. Whoever watched this and watched this to the end, I apologize. I didn't put anything on screen for the most part. No music. This was I just needed to make this video to complain about Season 3. Just ramble, really, but yeah, that's it. So, thank you for anyone that watched this. Take it easy. See you next time.